Hi friends, thank you for taking time out of your week to spend a little with me. I appreciate you. Today's case comes as a recommendation from Beth, so thank you for sending in this case. As always, I ask you all to join me as we remember Lisa French. Lisa Ann French was born on June 2, 1964 to parents Alan French and Mary Ann Gehrig in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. When Lisa was still very young, her parents separated. Mary Ann moved to Fond du Lac, where she met Lisa's stepfather, Bruce DuPont. Lisa was the eldest of 3 children. Lisa was a 4th grade student at Chickwin Elementary and a member of the local Girl Scout troop. According to Mary Ann, her daughter was the kindest girl. She recalled how Lisa had a big heart, especially for those less fortunate. She came home from school one afternoon and asked her mother if she could go through her clothes and give some to a girl at school. Lisa noticed the child didn't have nice clothes and felt she too deserved to own nice things. Mary Ann stated the next day Lisa carried a big bag to school and donated it to her friend. She always wanted to help out others. On October 31, 1973, Lisa was excited for Halloween, just as many other children in the neighborhood were. She'd planned to be a butterfly, but her mother felt the weather was too chilly, so instead they improvised. Lisa dressed as a hobo, donning a black felt hat, a green parka, jeans with blue masking tape, and dotted freckles on her cheeks. She left her home around 5:45 p.m. and agreed to return by 7 p.m. Originally, she planned to attend Pumpkin Palace, an annual outdoor Halloween party, with her friend Ann Parker. Lisa set out for the night of treats and fun, first stopping by Ann's house. When Lisa arrived, Ann informed her she could not attend the party because she was grounded. Her mother told her she had to stay home and miss out on the Halloween festivities. Although sympathetic toward her friend's situation, Lisa planned to carry on with the evening's plans. Except, she decided that on her way to Pumpkin Palace, she would stop along the way for some trick-or-treating. Mary Ann waited patiently, hoping her daughter would walk through the door at any moment. But as 7 turned to 8, she knew something was wrong. Mary Ann, who was at home with Lisa's newborn brother, reached out to the head of the block parents. Mary Ann was frantic and informed Betty Wofield, who was the head of the PTA-sponsored group. Betty placed a call to 50 other parents to turn their porch lights on and place signboards in their windows, because Lisa French was missing. By 10 p.m., the police were on the scene, and an all-night search began for the missing 9-year-old. By the following morning, there was still no sign of Lisa. So in addition to the police efforts, 1,500 members of the community also joined in. The National Guard brought helicopters, and private planes were also called in to help. Volunteers on horseback rode through fields, while those with Land Rover vehicles scoured marshlands, and police trudged through rivers. The local photo lab printed 6,000 copies of Lisa's school photo and distributed them throughout the town. The nearby gas stations offered free gas to anyone using a vehicle to aid in the search for Lisa. The entire community showed up in support of Mary Ann and finding her daughter. But after 4 days of searching, the community received devastating news. On November 3rd, Farmer Gerald Brown was returning home around 11:30 a.m. on his tractor when he discovered something odd. In a bush on the side of Highway 49 in Taycheedah, Wisconsin, there were 2 brown trash bags. Gerald decided to check out the situation. In the first bag, he discovered what appeared to be a child's costume, and in the second was the body of Lisa French. The news of the discovery shattered not only her family, but the community as well. Lisa's body was taken for autopsy, where it was determined she showed signs of assault. Lisa's cause of death was revealed to be asphyxiation, but the pathologist stated she died from circulatory shock. It was believed her death was a result of the trauma she endured. On November 6, 1973, the funeral for Lisa French was held at the Emmanuel Trinity Lutheran Church. Despite her being laid to rest, the community was ready for answers. Who could have done something so heinous to a child? 2 days after Lisa's funeral, the Chamber of Commerce offered a $10,000 reward for the capture of her killer. Police quickly got to work on the case, starting their focus on her neighborhood, the very people who helped aid in her search. While interviewing neighbors closest to the family, police discovered Lisa had made it to only a handful of houses before she went missing. These stops included a fellow classmate's house, one of her teachers, Karen Bachnick, and Gerald Turner. Each person was interviewed, but after their initial conversation with Gerald, police felt he was off, so he made their suspect list very early on. Gerald Turner Jr., born June 9, 1949, was a machinist for Soo Line Railroad. Gerald had recently gone through a divorce and lived next to Lisa's family for a while. At one point, he even rented the other side of their duplex. Gerald lived with his girlfriend Arlene Penn, and the couple shared an infant child who Lisa was fond of. Gerald was reportedly close to the family and lived about half a block away. During a background screening, it was revealed Gerald had been previously charged of assault on a 15-year-old babysitter in December of 1972, but was found not guilty of the crime. During their visit with Gerald, he did confirm he knew both Lisa and her family, but admitted that many children visited his home that night for trick-or-treating, and he couldn't confirm if he had seen Lisa. He was interviewed several times over a few months, and was even brought in to perform a polygraph exam where the results were inconclusive. During this point, Gerald willingly provided hair and bedsheet fiber samples to police for testing, but when Gerald was asked to do a second exam, he declined. Although police didn't have much evidence against him, they couldn't shake the idea that Gerald was somehow involved in Lisa's murder. So they continued to press on. During this line of questioning, investigators noted a discrepancy in his statement compared to his earlier interviews. Rather than backtracking and correcting himself, Gerald finally admitted what police suspected all along, that he murdered Lisa French. During his written confession, Gerald stated that when Lisa arrived on his doorstep, he became highly sexually motivated. He invited Lisa in where the two talked about candy briefly before Gerald started to urge her to his room. Once she was in his room, Gerald claimed he lost all control and started assaulting Lisa. After Gerald stopped the assault, he noticed Lisa was not breathing, but she still had a heartbeat. He attempted to revive her by performing CPR, but during this attempt, his girlfriend Arlene arrived home. Gerald admitted he placed socks on his hands and moved Lisa's body to the adjacent bathroom. Arlene attended the Pumpkin Palace and returned home because Gerald and herself had plans to visit her mother. But when she returned home around 7:15, she found Gerald in his bathrobe on the couch. Gerald faked an illness and told Arlene she should visit her mother without him. During the next hour, while Arlene waited for her mother to return home, she noted Gerald took several trips to the room to lie down. She didn't think anything of it since he claimed to be ill. After Arlene left the home around 8 p.m., Gerald placed Lisa's body and her clothes in separate trash bags and discarded them in bushes in a farm field. He confirmed he also placed socks on his hands during the transportation and disposal of Lisa to avoid leaving behind fingerprints. He also wiped down her shoes and parka to remove any potential evidence to link her back to him. The previously collected samples from Gerald were tested in comparison to fibers discovered on both Lisa's body and clothing, and both were a match. After his confession, Gerald was arrested on August 9, 1974, and charged with first-degree murder. Gerald's trial was scheduled for January of 1975. His counsel attempted to have his confession suppressed during a preliminary hearing. However, the judge ruled the confession was voluntarily and intelligently entered, so therefore it could be used in his trial. A change of venue was also requested by the defense, who argued Gerald would not receive a fair trial in Fond du Lac, but the motion was also denied. During trial, Gerald claimed he was innocent and had only confessed to the crime because he was tired of police harassing him. The prosecution argued Gerald had a cold disregard for people, especially females, and that he did not have the ability to inhibit his impulses for pleasure and to conform to society. Gerald's trial concluded on January 21, 1975. The jury deliberated for 8 hours before returning a verdict. The jury found Gerald guilty of second-degree murder, enticing a child for immoral purposes, and indecent behavior with a child. On February 4, 1975, Gerald was sentenced to a total of 38 years and 6 months in prison. He was transported to Waupun Correctional Institution to serve his time. Due to Lisa's murder, many cities in Wisconsin passed laws regarding trick-or-treating. Laws varied from town to town, but Fond du Lac specifically, trick-or-treating was only allowed on the Sunday before Halloween, from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m., and children were to be accompanied by an adult. On October 13, 1992, after serving 17 years and 8 months of his original sentence, Gerald was paroled for good behavior. This controversial decision sparked protest not only in Fond du Lac, but neighboring communities as well. Lisa's family and the public were outraged that such a dangerous individual was allowed to live amongst them. Gerald at the time lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at a halfway house. The residents of Milwaukee refused to allow Gerald to coexist with them. This prompted petitions and outcries for the lawmakers to right this wrong. Gerald was returned to prison less than a year after his release on November 23, 1993, due to the Department of Corrections miscalculating his parole release. But despite Gerald being back in prison, the public still feared his future release. So lawmakers introduced the Wisconsin Chapter 980 law, created on May 26, 1994 by Governor Tommy Thompson. Nicknamed Turner's Law, it allows for paroled or released criminals to be detained in mental institutions beyond their original sentence if they are deemed to have a substantial probability of committing another crime. In January of 1998, Gerald became eligible for parole a second time, but before his release, he had to undergo a trial due to Chapter 980. On January 29, 1998, after a 4-day trial, the jury concluded that Gerald was not a violent offender and therefore was eligible for release. An attempt to keep Gerald in jail was tried in July of 1998, when in June, Gerald shouted and waved a knife at his caseworker while in a halfway house. Despite a psychiatrist ruling that Gerald was still a dangerous individual, a judge ruled against revoking his parole for the incident. Gerald continued to live without incident until 2003, when he violated his parole for having an abundance of graphic adult content in his possession. For this offense, he was given another 15 years in prison. Gerald was scheduled for release in February of 2018 from his extended prison sentence. In response to his upcoming release, the Wisconsin Department of Justice filed a petition on January 26, 2018, that made the case that Gerald should be detained under Chapter 980. Lisa's mother, Mary Ann, also created an online petition to keep Gerald in a mental institution instead of releasing him back into the public. The petition garnered over 34,000 signatures. Gerald was scheduled for a hearing on April 6, 2018, to determine if he was in fact a violent offender and should be held in a facility permanently. However, this original date was postponed due to a change of venue being ordered. His violent offender trial was postponed many times due to various reasons, such as appeals and the 2020 pandemic. While awaiting the decision of the courts, Gerald was held at the Sandridge Treatment Center in Mauston, Wisconsin. But after many years of waiting, Gerald's fate was finally decided in 2025. On July 8th, a judge ruled that Gerald should not be released. Due to his crimes and behavior after, he still posed a serious risk to society. Gerald is currently held at a high-security mental facility in Wisconsin and cannot be released. Lisa Ann French continues to be remembered by her family, especially around Halloween, a holiday that's become synonymous with loss and grief. Lisa was laid to rest at the Estabrook Cemetery in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Hi friends, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. And thank you again to Beth for asking me to cover Lisa's case. As always, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts, so leave them below in the comments and we can chat about it. If you found this to be informative, please consider giving the video a thumbs up to let YouTube know you want more from me. And lastly, if you're not subscribed yet, you should, because we would love to have you under the ash tree. I appreciate everyone's support and kindness, but for now, we must part ways. Stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends.